Hi, my name is Kristen Olson. I teach family consumer science in Elmhurst, Illinois. And for my visual literacy project, I decided to create a presentation for my seventh grade sewing students to use. They make a mini pillow for their final project for our hand sewing unit. And in the past, I used to just give them written out directions, which I would get a lot of questions along the way because I feel like the concepts are so new to them that they really did not have the vocabulary down 100%. So the directions would kind of confuse them and they would get overwhelmed easily. So I decided to make a presentation that they would be able to follow along to that had pictures that go with each step so that they could actually see what their project should look like and what that particular step looks like. So on the first slide, I just put a couple finished projects so that they could see what it's going to look like at the end and kind of what they're working towards. I also put the learning target on there to make sure that they know what the purpose of us making these mini pillows are. And then on each step, I just kind of wrote out what the step is, wrote down a couple important pieces of information for each step, and then I added a visual. So this is a visual of one of the patterns that they could choose because this step is obviously choosing your pattern. Step two would be to cut out your pattern pieces. So I showed what that would look like at the end. And then anything that was really important, I did put in like a bright blue font instead because I feel like that will kind of jump out at them. And I decided to kind of make a box around the directions and a box around the pictures to kind of guide their eyes to both of those so that they could read one and then look at the pictures or look at the pictures and then read it. But I feel like that will kind of draw them in instead of just having it all out there. Step three is to choose their fabric. And one thing that I really wanted to make sure that they were aware of that is that they should put their fabric, their pattern pieces close to the edges of their fabric. So that is why I put the arrows going to this picture. I did crop this picture. It used to be a lot bigger. And I realized that, it was just too much for them to take. So I cropped it to just kind of focus in on exactly what I want them to look at. Again, I gave them some tips. Step four is to cut out their pattern pieces, so out of the fabric, and then they only have to put one into their bin, which I put that in the bright blue so that they would know to obviously look at that, and the bright blue will kind of draw them in and make sure that they do not miss that step. Step five is to pin everything in place, and this is a big thing that they kind of all struggle with is pinning properly. So I definitely wanted to make sure to emphasize that you have to pin it through and have the end of the pin come out on the top also. So that's what I was really focusing on, was making sure that the pinning looked perfect so that they could see that I pinned kind of all the way around so that it's holding everything down. Step six is to start sewing, and I wanted to use the running stitch. So I wanted to emphasize that in the brighter blue. And then I took the first picture, which is the center picture, and that's kind of an end product of all the sewing. And then I wanted to zoom in on that and show how small it is. So I cropped it, and then that will kind of draw their eye in so that they can see the specifics of what I'm really looking for. And then I obviously wanted to show them the back of it also, so that they could see the knots and everything, and make sure that they are still kind of on the same page, that their project is looking the same as this example project. The next step is to pin the front piece to the back piece so that they can start sewing the two together. So again, I wanted to show the proper pinning techniques and that they should be lining up. Step 8 is to sew the front to the back using the hem stitch. So now we're doing a different stitch, so I wanted to emphasize that again in a different color, bring their eyes into that visual of what it should look like along the edges. So I kind of zoomed in on that. And then step 9 is to leave an opening so that they can stuff it. So I wanted to show where the opening looked like and then also what it looks like when you stuff it. So that's why I have the two pictures pointing to the two different steps here. And then to sew the opening closed with the hem stitch. So I kind of zoomed in on that again. And step 11 is that their final project is done, and then they need to go do a reflection. So I wanted to really emphasize that point and make sure that they get that, because they're all very eager to get their grade, and the reflection is a big part of their grade also, because you can't just complete an assignment. You want to be able to reflect on it and decide what you could do better the next time. So all of these pictures are of like a project that would probably get 100%. So I wanted to make sure that it was up to that standard so that they could see what I am really looking for. That way they can definitely make sure that their projects are going along the same track and looking the same way, and they can revise anything as they need to go. So I think that this is really going to help them. It's going to clear up a lot of questions for them, because they're going to be able to use this a lot more than having to wait for me to be able to come over and answer their question. And it's going to also clear up anything where with those students who kind of don't want to ask for help, but they just kind of assume. It's going to show them what it should actually be looking like. So I'm pretty excited to start using this in my classroom.